Hello, my friend. Thank you so much for pressing play on this special episode of the Enneagram and Marriage podcast. Today, we're talking about giving you a beautiful home reset. We are so excited to host guest Whitney English. She is a decorator, interior designer, organizer extraordinaire. I know she would not give you that title. She is such a humble type 4. Don't let her fool you. She has such style, such beautiful ideas, and I am so excited for her to teach us about creating spaces that work in our homes. If you're listening live this summer, this is a great opportunity for a summer reset for you. And I'm so thankful I get to do that too with you because my family and I could truly use that this summer. In fact, at Enneagram and Marriage, I have been trying to figure out all the summer plans as I always do. And I realize that we need a summer of refinement both in my home as well as in the podcasting world. There's so much I want to do, so many ways I want to tighten up ship where I'm looking at organizing content and wanting to refine what I have. And in the midst of all that, so many of my clients are coming out of the woodwork from many years. And so it is a joy as well as welcoming in a few new ones to make sure that I can give well with what I already have. And I would imagine a lot of you are in that same boat, as Whitney herself talks about, even though she's been in such amazing public spaces sharing about all this, including getting to share on Good Morning America twice, in the O Magazine, Oprah's Magazine, and many other spaces. Whitney is also now in a season of being at home with her kids a lot. And so as we walk up to, yes, she's been on Wall Street Journal and so many other places, yet she's also now coming into summer home wanting to keep her budget simpler. She's looking to refine with us. So I hope you join us for these things. And I also hope you'll really allow yourself to pause and ask yourself the questions we start talking about in this episode, as well as continue the journey of finding your order through Whitney's beautiful book that I'm just honored that we get to talk about today, Organize First: From Clutter to Creativity. And she's a 4, and she's literally going to talk to you about how she goes to that one space and reminds us all that before we can bring the true beauty that we long for in our home spaces, we need to have a space for order. And her book, I've been pouring through it because it's such an important part of my life, and sometimes one of the later things that I would do personality wise. It's been such a gift to me. I have so many quotes. I've been sending it to the family, talking about it over the last few weeks on and off, and really just want you to know that she curates a lot for people who may feel that they're neurodivergent, who may feel that they not even just feel that they have something, but maybe were later diagnosed with ADD like she was, or who have grown up in a home like she did that had so much order that it was over the top, which my grandmother was like that. So I don't know what your story is today, but I do know that Whitney is going to remind us that what we want from our homes and what you'll want from your home is for it to tell the intentional story that you want for it. And right now I'm sitting in my home office and I like what I see. And I don't always feel that way, but I have a light pink wall. I have soft lighting behind me. I can see that I need to make my ring light. Oh, yeah, actually my ring light is pretty soft right now. And I have the flooring that I like. I have my Clinique makeup bag that's kind of messy next to me and a couple of things off of the rails, but nothing too off the rails. And yet I also know that there's this space tomorrow in our home that we're going to tackle in the morning so that we're not off the rails there. So maybe you too can come into this episode with just thinking about one tiny space that you will work on to create the home that you want for your summer or whatever season you're in. And as you'll hear today, Whitney's going to teach us about which seasons we might want to be a little different and a little more gracious because she's in the season with kids at home, prioritizing time together, busy sports schedules, and some of you are in that season as well. So we don't want you to feel any pressure. But yes, purpose and remembering that where you live matters, where you spend your time matters. So, all of that said, I hope you'll join me as I'm summer curating, even down to my makeup that I mentioned. My sister got my girls and I caboodles. Remember those for those of you who are 1980s and 90s girls? And I am laughing like we have our little makeup spaces and we can see everything because we didn't overly clutter it. And we have our summer lists that we hope to get done both for work and for play and for little excursions or big ones. And I hope that you too just feel like today you get that order going in your schedule so that you can, like Whitney wants to do, make some really quality times with your people and you don't feel like you always have to leave. And I'll just say one more thing before she comes on, and that is that this week is the Ennea Summit. So I don't want you to miss it if you're in that space of just really wanting more information about Enneagram. If you want some community online, I'm one of the speakers there. There's many other speakers there, including Ian Cron and probably almost all the Enneagram guests we've had on this podcast before, including Tyler Zach, the organizer, and many others as well. So I hope you'll check that out. It's in the show notes. It is this week, and it is actually free this week if you just want to touch base a little bit each day. Or you can buy the all access pass as well, and that is also in the show notes, along with Whitney's beautiful book, links, and links to her website. I promise you, these spaces are curated for you to grow in, both internally with the Ennea Summit, as well as externally around you with Whitney's work as well, which we know, guys, whether you're a P or a J on the Myers-Briggs, we will find you some order. Whether you're a 3 or a heart type, a 7 in that moving space of the thinking types, whether you're a body type who wants things right, then this episode has something for you. And I'm just so glad, again, like I said, that you are here, that you press play. I'm proud of you for doing the work. Maybe you're already like, Krista, there's already things from what you just said that I'm getting on, but let's let Whitney teach us so much more right here. Okay, thanks. Whitney, we're so glad to have you on the Enneagram and Marriage podcast today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Krista. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, I cannot wait to dig into hearing more about you and Dave, your types a little bit, but most of all, what you're here to teach us about, which is bringing order. Many of us are looking for that this summer or whenever you're listening, and you have a beautiful book to help us get there too. I cannot wait to dig into some questions I have for you and some things I know you want to share, but I would love first for you to tell everybody just a little bit about yourself.
Yes. Okay. So I am Whitney English. I live in Oklahoma, married to my husband, David, obviously, I guess. And we have three kids, ages 15, 14, and 12. And yes, we are headed into big, big deep breath, the summer season.
Yes.
Tomorrow is the last day of school, and somehow I will survive.
Thank
That's
you
where
for,
I am.
yeah, I loved your honesty about this. Just this is a hard moment for a lot of people. Everybody is in that same space of just knowing whether it's their kids, their grandkids, seeing kids in the community. This is the season kids are out of school. And I'm so glad if you've got babies, you're like, they're with me all the time anyway. But I really feel that with you is there's this hope to get work done this summer. There's this hope to get vacation days in. Do you have anything you're looking forward to doing that is a little lighter with the kids this summer?
I'd love to do something vacation wise. We have not been able to do that with our kids because of budget for the past few years, and I don't know that this summer is going to hold that either. But I think that and yes, I hope to get work done. I love to work,
Mm.
but I also realize my kids are at those ages where I'm only going to have them for a little bit longer, and I also want whatever happens for it to be meaningful, and I want us to connect. And even if we have to do hard stuff, you know, I want to nurture their heart is
Mm.
what I really want to do. So I hope that there are some beautiful, fun opportunities to do that. And I hope it's not hard and painful, but
Yeah, yeah.
I
I
feel
think
like I'm bracing for a challenge at this point.
Yeah, I think that makes sense though that you're keeping the right perspective because everyone has a budget of sorts. And that goes from the person who is making minimum wage to the, clients I know who make millions of dollars a year. Everyone has a budget. And so I
Hmm.
love that you named that and that you are applying that to, I don't want that to get in the way of the heart time we get together. I know my kids made 100 item bucket list for summer on a big poster board as soon as they finished up their college studies and middle school studies. And it was really fun. And they all three got together with this big bucket list. And it's been great to see many of the items are free. And so even one of them was like a
Mm,
library summer challenge to go see the baseball team. And I was just so happy to see that one.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my
that's a good
gosh.
idea.
Yeah, like those things are beautiful for me to hear that you're like, that's just telling us more about you. And if you guys know your Enneagram types, we would love to hear those too.
So, my husband is an Enneagram 9, and
Okay.
I'm going to start with that because my Enneagram type comes with an interesting recent story. And
Ooh.
obviously, you're the expert here. I'm not, so you might be able to provide guidance. I always thought I was an Enneagram 7, always,
Mhm.
always thought I was an Enneagram 7. And
Yeah.
then I was listening to a recent podcast with Ian Cron. I think it was actually his podcast, and it was, but maybe it was an old episode where he was going through all the types.
Yeah.
And he got to Enneagram 4 and he talked about the motivation and the drive for the Enneagram 4 to be, it's this idea of personal expression.
Mm.
And when he said it, it hit me in a
Mm.
way that it made me wonder if I have been using the whole I'm an Enneagram 7, life at the party,
Yeah.
let's meet for cocktails and have a good time as sort of a cover for
Mm.
anyway, there's just a lot. I just came out with this book, Organize First, Decorate Second, and I talk a lot in the book about not just organizing and decorating. I think it's a very layered it's a very layered book because I wanted to write a book about home, and obviously like that means so many things to all of us, and
Yeah.
it's a personal expression of who we are. And so anyway, I really value originality. I'm
Mm.
very creative and really value originality. People have always sort of like, if you have to assign an Enneagram type to me, people usually think I'm a 3 because I've been an entrepreneur for really a very long time, always. Um, but I think that the entrepreneurial streak is more about the freedom
Mm.
to express myself and less about the ambition. And that people think that I'm trying to prove something. I'm really not trying to prove anything. I really just feel like I was born to create,
Oh,
and whatever path is going to get me there, or not even create but express. Let's use an even simpler word than
yeah.
create, because I feel like it's a much more approachable word for some people think they're not creative. Well, we're all expressive.
Yes.
um and so, and home for me is it's that, hence the book on how I'm tying all this together. But
Yeah.
this idea of how do I use home to express who I am? And then back to answer your question, I have no idea what Enneagram type my kids are. My
Mm.
oldest might be a 1, and I've really tried not to like do anything to
Right.
my kids but
Which I
like speak
love.
life
Right. Two.
over them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't wanted to assign them, but if I was gonna guess, I would say that my oldest, he's a 1. He is more responsible than all the rest of us
Mm.
combined.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
literally, they
Yeah.
needed somebody on altar guild at church, and I was like, "You don't want me here? Have
Yeah.
him."
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And
so cool.
my youngest, my daughter, I would say she's also very creative. As she gets older, I actually see the not just creativity but talent
Yeah.
from a creative aspect,
Oh,
natural talent.
yeah.
I wonder if she might, but she will never stop talking like in her entire life. Um, so from that point of view, I'm like, maybe you're a 7. And then my middle kid, I have no idea. He's Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes. What Enneagram type is
Oh
Calvin?
gosh. Oh, that's such a good question. Maybe a 6, but I'd have to research that comic a little more. I haven't done a whole lot of that. I know that the Calvin and Hobbes is very John Locke, I believe, with another philosopher.
Mm,
And so I think Calvin. I don't know. I'm betraying that Hobbes Calvin. I don't know, but I know that
uh-huh.
they're very thoughtful. Is he very thinking oriented? 5, 6?
He's he's very bright.
Interesting.
Um, he's very witty. He
Mm.
has a very comic sensibility to him. He's going through kind of just that awkward teenage where you start to second guess yourself. And so
Yeah.
I just kind of try to keep telling him that he's very good at um you just catch him saying that like the funniest, quirkiest, most darling, beautiful little things that you appreciate as a parent. And his friends don't see that quite yet. They don't see the charm,
Yeah.
that natural, but just because it's covered over with all this dumb teenage, I call it a case of the teenagers, just this self-consciousness of
Yeah.
trying to figure out who they are
Yes.
and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful that you see that coming through. And so you're like, I need to be a little hesitant because he's really developing.
Hmm.
And that makes me really happy that he's got you as a mama. Um, he is
Sweet.
heart. And so I do see that you're probably a heart type, which is the
Hmm.
twos, threes, and fours. And of course, we have to look at the deep motivation. I think you're saying it's more about uniqueness, belonging, love than it is for sevens. It's although this is important to a four. Also, sevens are more about safety, security. We also want love,
Hmm.
but there's a lot of depth of trust that's kind of at the root. And I know that that's
Hmm.
for me. I love my creativity as a seven. I know Ian thinks that I'm more of a seven or a self-pres four, and that might be you too, like kind of leaning into both of those a bit, but just allowing
Interesting.
yourself to see, yeah, like, do I have that desire for deep trust too? Or am I more like I really just need to focus on love, which we all need love. So I agree. You probably have some seven and four traits. I also appreciate that with your kids, if it's obvious, like with your one son, it's more obvious. It's beautiful to lift off in the gifting and then to be able to nurture while he's in the home. Here's how we're going to
Hmm.
manage that one space so that you have some gifts to bring out, knowing that by the time he's a married man, him and his wife are not going to want your input as much. They're just not.
Right.
And so I've loved that for Enneagram with my two daughters. They've known it and they were
Hmm.
able to tell they were a four and a nine quite early. One of them thought she was a one instead of a four first, but when they found it, they needed it. With my son, who's 12 or 13, he's still learning, is he a six or a seven? And I can just
Okay.
tell you, just like you, we should not rush that because you never want to box somebody into something that just isn't them, right?
No, I want them to be who God created them to be.
Mm.
And back to that, I value that personal expression so much.
Oh,
Um, I think I just think that's really humans just need to be seen, heard, known, and loved, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
um, and that means, and I don't know, just allowing them to explore what God has given them. It's a beautiful discovery process if we allow it to unfold and we don't try to rush it. I think you have to be okay with a little bit of ambiguity and a little bit of uncertainty in life. I've been talking to a couple friends about this over the past few days. I think it's so interesting how these threads pop up
mm,
in our lives with, different conversations that I'm having. And, you know, I think we love the Enneagram because as humans, we just love to categorize and sign,
yeah,
organize and, put structure to things. And it
yeah,
gives us a way it gives us a better way to understand people and how we navigate different individuals in the world.
yeah,
Um, but I think that we're really also quick. I've struggled with some people in my life, and I don't even know what Enneagram type this is, but who just want to assign something and just put a check mark beside it and call it done.
mm,
Um, and I have this creative
yeah.
streak that's more like, no, let's just hold things in this tension and see where they go. But I think that's an interesting approach to I feel like I don't meet a lot of people that
Get
I
that.
don't know. That's just the conversation I'm having lately
Yeah.
in the faith space is the desire for certainty is sin, like we
Mm,
just want and I use that term loosely, but
yeah. Hmm.
um yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Such a good, needed, rich conversation. So thank you for having that. As my husband said, Enneagram is not determinism, it's more of a current. And I really
Mm,
love that because he is really big into philosophy as well and science. And it's just so helpful to help all of us remember that we have certain traits. And as we put on Christ, we can look less and less like the worst of those traits and more, hopefully, put on all the fruits of the Spirit. And one way, if you're in that force space sometimes, which I know you said you at least are sometimes, many listeners know that as the creative space. As you said, I love how you added to that, where you're helping people to get lift off and bring things to life, not just creativity. And I also love that you said everyone's creative. But that said, it's very obvious from your beautiful book, Organize First, Decorate Second, that when I read it, I immediately said, that is so 4/1 the way you're going to walk our listeners today through. You have such a take your time perspective. Not that we have a lot of time as moms, as we already said, full
Hmm.
disclosure, but you're helping us to remember that to make things beautiful, we need time and we need some order. So
Hmm.
that's so different from like an unhealthy seven who's just totally scattered. And I get that you said you have ADD as well. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm.
Can
Hmm.
you tell us a little bit about the backstory for why you felt like you needed to learn this first before you brought it to others? I just think that'd be so interesting.
Well, I mean, I was talking to Hannah Brencher, who's a darling author and human being the other day. We did a little Instagram thing and
Oh,
we were talking about writing and she said, "Why do you write?" And I said, I think I write to wrestle. I mean, I write to figure things out. I write to understand myself. I think as a child growing up, I was always journaling and diarying and like just writing. I mean, pages and pages of teenage angst. Um, but I was doing that because I mean, really as a form of therapy, hindsight being 2020, I didn't know that at the time, but I was using that as a tool to sort of process,
yeah.
the world around me.
Mm,
And, and so when I told my editor I wanted to write a book about home, she said, "Well, we're always looking for the next book on organizing." And I said, "You don't want me to write that book." And she said, "Oh, why not?" Because I am not organized. And that's another thing. I've made planners and I've been an entrepreneur for a very long time,
yeah.
and people assume they will. I mean, at a cocktail party, another mom will walk up to me who doesn't really know me or just knows me through social media or something, and she'll be like, "So you must be perfectly organized." Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't create a planner because you're organized. Like the reason necessity is the mother of invention. The
Yes,
reason I created a
that's another
planner
great
is
quote.
because I was trying to figure it out.
Mhm.
And um and so I knew going into writing Organize First, Decorate Second that, I first of all, I'm willing to be vulnerable and admit what I'm not, and that is organized. And I'm willing to admit that that's an ambition and there's nothing wrong with that. Uh, we serve a God of order, and I think it is glorifying and honoring to him to want to, take my human scatterbrainedness, even though that's the way he created me, and then and build on that and strengthen it and
Oh,
discover more about myself and so anyway,
oh, I
that
love that.
the book was written with all that in mind.
Oh my gosh. And that is so for and vulnerable of like, you know what? Like full disclosure, we're all on the journey together. I think that just invites people to take a deep breath. Like I'm not going to hear from somebody today who's like, yeah, I have it all figured out. I always have. And from what I understand from your book, you also up in a home where, of course, unintentionally, sometimes you felt like you were walking on eggshells, like things had to be
Hmm.
perfect. And so I can see
Hmm.
why at first you might have pendulum swinging other way. And you talk about how your family,
Hmm.
like you have such beautiful rituals now of like taking time for the heart with your kids, but how you
Hmm.
then realize I too need order.
Yes, no, it it's probably very easy to say that my mother is an Enneagram one. My father is maybe a one with a nine wing or nine with a strong one.
Yeah.
Um, but no, and in all, I want to give all the grace in the world to them because that Enneagram, that one in them really came from, I mean, first of all, it was cultural, just
Right.
how they were raised.
Yeah.
And then I also look at people our parents' age and I see them struggle with shame in a way
Yeah.
that a younger generation has been able. I don't know if it is that, Brene Brown, thank you, or
Yeah.
Ian Cron,
Yeah.
I'm sure it is, but there's a different conversation
Hmm.
around fault, or flaws, and
Yeah.
there's a different willingness, um and just a lot more of, modern psychology and science and things that back up,
Hmm.
research and access to information. And so a gajillion reasons.
Yeah.
Um, but we we were not allowed to gouge the butter
Hmm.
at our home growing up. I mean, the margarine that used to come in the little tubs.
Yeah.
Your butter knife had to float smoothly across the top of the butter. You could not stick
Wow.
your knife in and no,
Oh,
do not gouge the butter, Whitney.
wow.
Yeah, no, it was, and it's made for a very deep breath, tenuous relationship with current relationship with my parents.
Yeah.
And I don't desire to um, throw them under the bus, but I do desperately desire to um, I think that there's a certain healing that comes when you get to the other side of hard stuff, and there's no way around it. There's only through. And it's not as terrifying on the other side. Once you've been to hell and back, not, but once I mean, and I'm sure that even as I say that, there are people listening who are like, oh, I have been there, like
Yeah.
there probably are some people who are like, I don't know exactly what you're talking about. My life has never been quite that miserable. I'm like, amazing. That's awesome. But for those
Right.
who have
Get it.
really feel like they have hit rock bottom once or twice in life, you know that I always say there's a lot of clarity at rock bottom. The water is cool and it's easy to see, and it's a solid surface on which you can push off and come back to the surface.
Oh,
Not that I like it down there, but
yeah. Ooh,
yeah.
but ooh, I never heard it said so well, and it's so true. And I think that whatever our typology, we're both acknowledging, probably with many, if not most of our listeners, because this is going to be people who get along with me, that we're people of passion. And
Mm,
so it's like you're going to hit that place more often than some other
mm,
people. And so, like, you just described it so well. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you. And yet, I think that part of what I would wonder about is when we can find the clarity that comes from bringing order externally, do you think it gives you more time to do some internal processing, or is it vice versa that you need to do internal and then you can get out? And this kind of takes us into Myers-Briggs a little for those who are thinking,
hmm.
oh, do I end with the J or P, internal processing versus external? But just for you, I guess I'm curious about that. Which one do you think comes first, or is it sort of as you do one, the other starts to happen? As you start cleaning, you start processing, or as you start journaling, you start getting moving into doing.
Dr. Krista, that is such a good question.
Thank you
I
so
mean,
much.
no, like I, I was thinking about this the other day. For me, there's something about having a kitchen cabinet that you open up and everything falls out. I mean, you can close it up and the kitchen might still look perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And I think that this goes back to being raised by Enneagram 1 perfectionist parents.
Yeah.
But there's something about me that, even though I am scatterbrained and passionate and creative, that I know in the back of my mind that that very messy, disordered cabinet is really not functioning at its best, you know? And but so at the same time, is it possible for every single cabinet to be perfectly organized? No.
Right.
We live in a fallen, broken world.
Right, right,
Um, but
right.
does that mean that we shouldn't aspire to that? Absolutely. I believe absolutely not. I
Right.
believe that there is that when we are told to do our work as unto the Lord in a way that glorifies him,
Mhm.
that he realizes that he knows we're never going to be perfect, but
Right.
but with the right heart and the right attitude, and I guess that's where another tension lies is, my daughter has looked at me before and said, Mom, it's never going to be perfect. Like, yeah, honey, I do know it's not going to be perfect, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try. That doesn't mean that the effort isn't honorable in and of itself, you know?
Yeah.
So I say to my kids, I say, in our house, you get points for effort. In the real world, I'm sorry, it doesn't quite work like that. But when
Mm.
you're here, so, is every room going to be perfectly clean? No, but I want to applaud them for trying. Just because they're kids, it's hard to go something the same way an adult would, you know?
Oh my God.
You yeah.
So well
So
said. No, I love that. And I think that your kids are seeing you grapple in a way that, like you said, for whatever reason, culturally, even prior
mhm,
generations were not able to do or did not have the tools to do. But we do now. And I know a lot of people in the older generations who are doing that work to their credit. And we hope
mhm,
others will. But I feel like your kids are coming alongside you and you're forming that healthy theology together that you're like, and just as we do,
mhm,
like we're learning together, how do I bring order and grace both to my home? And I
right.
think that's beautiful what you said about the way God does that. And so when we find that you and your family are finding your way to order and to bringing intentional thought and actual beautiful decor that I love
Mhm,
actually seeing your background right now and also
mhm.
reading about it in a book. You can just tell you're so intentional with beauty also, which is so for also. Um, I just was curious, do you find yourselves in feeling better? Again, not perfect, but do you find yourselves relating a little better when things are aesthetically pleasing?
Definitely things are easier, you know. I mean, there's less frustration if I'm looking for a screwdriver and I go to the tool chest in the garage and it's there,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, at some point in time, yeah, I mean, 100%. Things are easier whenever I'm not tripping over someone's shoes or backpack or, you know, this, I woke up this morning. Last night, the kitchen was perfectly clean. This morning, it is not. And I just,
Yeah.
back to the whole summer thing. I'm like, how are we going to do
Yeah,
this?
right. Yes. Oh,
But I feel like it's for me right now where I am, it's just all about leaning into that tension. And I don't know any other way to do that than to just say, than to acknowledge that it's there. I mean, that's the starting point. It's just to say the kitchen is messy and I don't want it to be. And I do in an effort to make things easier, I have tried to improve my communication skills. I tell my family that they know this, I have a dirt threshold. It's
mm,
really high. I mean, I really out of my own tendency to be scattered and ADHD, I do have a very high threshold for
yeah.
dishes in the sink and leaves in the entryway and shoes
Mm,
until I don't.
yeah.
And I have learned to communicate I mean first to my husband and then to the kids. Like I'll say to my husband, I'll be like, David, I'm nearing that point.
Yeah. Yeah, this is our warning. And thankfully you're getting that warning sometimes where it doesn't
Right.
just happen. It's like there's a bit of and that's the ideal place for all of us when we actually have that warning before we flip our lid. And I know it doesn't
Hmm.
always happen perfectly, but that's amazing that you can say that. And what is a quick tip you have for our listeners now when you see that, when you say, oh my gosh, I'm feeling that this summer, or whenever I'm listening? I'm feeling myself rising up. My spouse has been sloppy, my kids, or maybe even it's me. What's something that helps you guys to get things
Mm,
started?
that's also a great question. So my husband and I there's actually two things that I can tell, like two actual practical tools that we use in our marriage that help us in difficult situations.
Hmm.
The first one is, how was your day?
Hmm.
And we have actually been furious at each other before, just really mad. Like the worst you could possibly we've all been there, but
Yeah. Oh,
the
yeah. Oh my
maddest you
gosh.
could
Yeah.
possibly be as
Yeah.
your spouse. And we have sat down and we've been like, how was your day? And the other person's job is to start at the beginning of the day and just talk through it. Just be like, well, first I woke up. And then by the time you get to the end of the day, all of a sudden you start to if they will just talk through
Hmm.
what happened in their day, all of a sudden you sort of understand how you guys got to this point. Like you understand all the frustrations that happened, all the meaning he assigned to the interactions that got him to that point.
Hmm.
And really and truly, it is so hard to stay mad at the end of how was your day? If you really And so we'll do that. If it's been a really bad day, we will find time away from the kids. And it starts as a rote. It's not something we want to do. It starts as a very manual. Well, first I did this, and then I did this, then I
Hmm.
did this, and that made me blah blah blah. And
Oh,
right about that time, you start to go, oh, like this is, and then by the end of it, you have empathy for the other
oh,
person.
yeah.
Anyway,
No,
it's
that's
amazing.
Yeah, that's a really great concept you just brought that I've never heard anyone. Very unique. And I love it because it brings us to, I think, back to that, harkens back to the internal order we need to get to the place where we can get doing and moving, which I know fours are doing and inhibited typically. So
Hmm.
you're like, I have to get moving. How do I do that? Let me get my thoughts in order together with my partner. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, and also nines are doing inhibited. So it's the
Hmm.
two of you, and
Interesting.
I have those are my two daughters that could tell their types fairly early on, which helped them so much. And they're the best of friends because they have learned, eventually we do have to dig out and do our work, together or get organized together, but they're both able to kind of pull back and withdraw. And so whenever our listeners are in that space, which we can all go to those spaces, we said it earlier, we need those healthy conversations. And that's a great
Mm-hmm.
reminder of don't bypass the emotional work and just get everyone doing and cleaning. Often there's a
Mm-hmm.
block emotionally first. And then once we do get cleaning, and then we're like, maybe we even decided at that point, you know what? Thank you for let's go get an ice cream. We've had a hard
Mm-hmm.
day,
Exactly.
but let's say we're at the day or the part of the day. Now it's evening. We're feeling better. Let's spruce up. What is something you do? I'm going to ask you one more question because I know you have some
Mm-hmm.
bigger processes, but what about like a quick spruce up? What's something you recommend?
I mean, I would have said it if you just hadn't, but the idea of like, let's clean the kitchen and then go get an ice cream. Like,
Yeah.
no, let's get it really clean. And you know what? I know my kids. It is going to be really clean, lickety split if I say, let's go get an ice cream. No,
Yes.
they know we can't do that every night,
Right. Right.
but but if you if you have it in the budget to go get an ice cream, don't be afraid to ask them to clean the kitchen, you
Right.
know?
And don't be afraid to, as I've even learned with my 17 and 9-year-olds, like just my husband being a type one, he feels so guilty for spending money. And it's like
Mm,
and he's a newer generation one. He's come a long way. But the truth is that he loves it when he loves grocery shopping, first of all. It's very relaxing to him to get
mm,
savings and BOGOs and things like that.
mm,
And so even going to the grocery store, because ice cream's usually on sale. Cheap foods
mm,
are on sale. And so just taking them out for
mm-hmm,
gonna go get ice cream supplies. And I love that. That's so good
mm-hmm,
after we do something good. And
mm-hmm,
if you have longer, I notice you even have, this helps me, you have a way of just allowing yourself time to going room by room a bit. And I want people to get the book, so I don't want to share it all, but can you tell us more about taking assessments of various rooms and something you've done with that? You have the maximalism concept. I don't know which way you want to
mm-hmm.
turn with it.
Right. And that's the amazing thing about writing a book and then even having conversations like this is you end up realizing there's like so many other things you could write a book about. Like even just,
Ooh.
I never even thought it. I mean, but, um, the tools that my husband and I, things like that. I'm like, oh, like that is something that we sort of hacked our way to that, anyway. And you're like, that's fascinating. I'm like, maybe I should write a book about it. Anyway,
No.
um, in terms of room by room, I love beauty and I love function. I love being able to sit in a comfortable chair. And I think about the way I sit in the chair. So we live in a house that's over 50 years old, but it came with this screen that drops down out of the living room ceiling. It sounds like a very high tech thing, but it was put in a house in 1970 because the guy wanted a place to put his slide projector, like the little slides. You know what I'm saying? Is that
Yeah.
what that's called?
Okay.
Slide
Slide
projector. That's
projector.
what
Yep.
that's called, right?
Yep. Mhm.
So he wanted a place to show his photography. So anyway, we just got a projector and put it up, and that's where we watch this. The picture's not real great because the screen's ancient, but it's a fun way. We don't have, we really don't have we have a TV in the kitchen, which is where I'm sitting right now, but we really don't. It's kind of our TV room.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, so I like to think about exactly how I sit in this chair. So my chair is a certain chair, of course,
Mhm.
and and I don't want it to look like a lazy boy. I care about how it looks, but I also care about how it feels.
Oh, yeah.
And and so then I get very creative and I think, I have a great upholsterer who can build furniture frames and things like that. So now I've got in my head, it turns into a whole project. Now I need a slight wing on the chair right here so that if I fall asleep during the movie, my head can lay just right here on and it has to have an ottoman that's a certain, and I I love it. I mean, I love that process of getting something just right. And this idea of like, okay, I need a drink table right here. And the drink table needs to be a certain height so that I can just put my glass right there and reach it. Every room needs a wastebasket. And
Mm.
why not it doesn't have to be ugly. Make it beautiful. Like make it cute. Make it I you know, um every room needs a notepad. I had to go find one. I didn't have one.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
I think every room needs a cup of pens, and I think every room needs a pair of scissors. And so it's been interesting actually talking to some podcasters that are minimalists. There's a lot of minimalist podcasts out there. There are no maximalists. I've not found
Right.
a
Yeah.
maximalist podcast. And so I think they hear me say like, oh, every room needs a chapstick and a box of Kleenexes,
Right.
it feels like too much. But in my head, it's just convenience and comfort, and really just letting people know that they can be themselves and that what do you need? What do you need? Because if you have what you need, you're going to feel safe. And if you feel safe, you're going to feel like you can express yourself. And you can express yourself, you're going to feel seen, heard, known, and loved. And then we've got healthy humans who can go out into the world and practice that the way Jesus intended, even when it's hard.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. You are really allowing for us to have needs. And I think so many times we've allowed that we just have to press on and dig in. And that can get to such an unhealthy Enneagram 1 space of frustration. Like, I have to be minimalistic to the point that we can only have the one pair of scissors in the house. And if we lose it, then I'm really upset. Or,
Mm-hmm.
I better not waste and have any time wasted on bringing beauty because that would be wrong. And that's not, by the
Mm-hmm.
way, where my husband lives. He likes beauty as well. But I think that
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of us can take that even into the three
Mm-hmm.
space. A lot of listeners know the shorthand of, well, I just need to achieve today. And
Mm-hmm.
no space in my life for bringing these moments of beauty into the home. But I think when you do, as you said, and my husband was telling me recently, I don't have the statistic, maybe you have a reference or read it, but where when you do these things, you do find that your cortisol, stress, everything's down a little bit when you have a safer, healthier space at home. I mean, it's intuitive sense anyway, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. No,
Mm,
I've yeah, no, um, I've done a couple of, I say a lot, a couple of like week-long therapy intensives where we actually have a resource here in Oklahoma City called Green Shoe, and it's world class, and it's actually free to attend. You have to pay for your own expenses
yeah.
to get there, but it is something. It's a nonprofit foundation that really just does this incredible work. And the first thing that they do is they just make sure you feel safe. And
Oh,
they're,
wow.
and it used to be that you had to have money to be able to, now you just have to get on a waiting list and meet the qualification, like that you're not supposed to partake substances and things like that. I mean, there's requirements for, a standard level of emotional health before they accept
That's good.
people into the program. But, it's this, there's a beautiful kitchen and it's like, here are snack bars and here are drinks, healthy drinks, and and they're creating this amazing hospitable environment that there should be no reason why we shouldn't have the ambition to try to create that in our own homes for people,
Mm,
and that is at the root of, I talk about that in the book. I walk through all the spaces, but it really, I think it's a book about it's a book about relationships.
mm,
I almost want to cry when I say
yeah.
that, because um you write it and you're putting, it's a self-help book. Like you're putting like, use this kind of hanger, this is the kind of box that you need to store your things in. And it feels corny, but at the very end of it, it really is about creating a space where humans know that they matter and that they're valued.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That is really a good point that I didn't expect from this interview. And it's beautiful. And I'm still processing it. And that's good because I'm a seven and I can run ahead. But like, it's really nice for me to just pause with you on that note because we're honoring to the people in our lives when we value
Hmm.
the ways they live. And I'm
Hmm.
remembering a sad moment for my mom when she was in my dad's house and he was particularly just slovenly by the time they were elderly. And I was not blaming him.
Hmm.
It's so hard taking care of another person. She was really,
Hmm.
in a hard mental health state,
Hmm.
schizophrenia with a stroke, so many things piled up.
Hmm.
And he got her
Hmm.
in the nursing home for her last years of life after he stopped teaching. And he said, I just want to spend my time with my wife. But I remember seeing her in such an undignified manner the last time because he would always like get in fights with his house cleaner. He was like this unbridled eight. I'm just like,
Hmm.
oh, but like at the same time, their love was evident, as was this is a really hard thing to see her in this state of disarray. And I was talking to a friend who's
Hmm.
definitely a one who doesn't know Enneagram, but she has all the unhealthy stuff of the one and the beauty
Hmm.
of the one. She really does have it all. I
They
wish
can do it.
yeah, I wish she had more awareness because she's got a heart of gold. But like last time she was at our grad party, we're like, no, like this can't happen. Everyone was like
Hmm.
seeing your anger unleashed. But
Hmm.
but she cleans people's homes after they die. And I said, was my
Hmm.
dad's the worst? Because somebody kept saying it. My sister kept saying, I think our dad's was the worst. And I was just thinking, I don't know. And she goes, every one of those was bad because when people get to be a certain age, they stop caring. And I thought, oh my gosh. Well, she didn't say they stopped caring. She said they stopped
Hmm.
caring about that because they're doing other things. And I
Yeah.
valued that, but I also thought I don't want to be that kind of elderly person because just seeing my
Hmm.
mom in that state made me feel exactly
Hmm.
opposite of what you had just said about like bringing value and
Hmm.
dignity to people across the aging
Hmm.
process. Like I know that we can't live in ideals, but I really received that when you said that.
Yeah, I think, we have neighbors across this who last week moved into and it's not an independent living center. And it's the first time I mean, we used to take him a pizza every Friday night. We make homemade pizza on Friday nights. And I'm like,
Gosh.
you know, I don't know. I mean, I think taking him a pizza did help contribute to that sense of dignity. And they couldn't get out. And so it allowed them to feel like, you know, it was just something that we could do.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
that lets them know. And I don't think there's anything wrong with my heart definitely goes out to people who are experiencing those later years of life. I don't know anything. I really that the story I just told you about my neighbors, this is the only thing I know about walking people through that season of life. And I know it's got to be hard and
yeah.
um I don't have any answers for that one other than
Yeah.
I,
Bringing
I think that your ambition is good to not have to, or to be able to keep it beautiful for as long as possible.
Yeah, yeah. And to see, like you said, coming all the way back as we end, harkening back to your story with your mom, like not missing the person if you are bringing the order, but including them in the
Hmm.
process. So, oh my gosh, what a rich conversation today.
Thank
You
you.
are just, your book has so much more. I really feel we could have taken a good 3 hours and still not scratched the surface. So please, you guys, dig into Whitney's book. It's beautiful. It's in the show notes. Tell them where they can find you, though. This was amazing.
My website is whitneyenglish.com. I am on Instagram at Whitney English, but you can message me there, but I just don't check those messages very often. I am more and more on Substack. I'm Whitney English on Substack, which I'm very much enjoying because it feels like slightly more conversational and less social media, at least for the moment. That might change. But I'm enjoying that because I can write long form thoughts. I think that I'm going to try to. Who knows this summer? I will figure out summer tomorrow with,
Yeah.
with the kids.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
yeah, Prayers, please.
Oh, okay, I will. And your book is done, so that's good. And now you can pace
Yes,
and be proud of
yes,
this beautiful project and all the heart projects of the summer. And whenever
yes.
people are listening, we want you to be able to do those too. And this book just brings us the beauty of our in our homes, and that's why I'm excited to just to have it this summer. So thank you so much for your time today, Whitney, and hopefully we'll continue the conversations.
Thank you, Krista. I appreciate it.
Oh. Thank you guys so much for just allowing for this summer of refinement with me and with Whitney. And I hope you'll continue the journey. Whitney's book has so much. In fact, I was listening to her as well as pouring through the pages. So I want you to make sure that you get a chance to listen to her as well or pour through her pages as well. Her book is in the show notes. You can follow her at whitneyenglish.com as you heard. And you also can continue the journey for the Ennea Summit or any of the Enneagram and Marriage offerings at enneagramandmarriage.com or in the link in the show notes. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Bye, my friend.